Don't skip this. Seriously, something important is waiting for you here. Welcome to the channel.
Chosen one, listen carefully. I have an urgent message to release today, and this is not for everyone. If you do not walk the divine path of God, if you mock faith or chase darkness, this message is not for you. But if you are a true follower of God, if your spirit has been restless or misunderstood lately, then this message found you at the exact moment heaven intended. You are watching this because you are chosen. This is confirmation. Chosen one, there is a season where you will lose everything except God. When that season arrives, resistance brings pain, but acceptance brings peace. God is removing what cannot follow you into your assignment. Stay with me until the end of this message, because what I am about to explain will change how you see your losses and loneliness. Many of you have been questioning yourself in silence. By the end of this, your spirit will feel lighter and steadier. Before we continue, chosen ones, give a like to this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, tap the bell icon, and share this message with other chosen ones. And comment 777 as a sign that you accept God's process and align with your divine path.
Why God strips the chosen. The law of divine separation. Chosen one, let me speak to you plainly now, without sugarcoating, without fear of sounding too direct. What you are experiencing is not random, it is not bad luck, and it is certainly not God turning his back on you. What is happening is something ancient, intentional, and sacred. God strips the chosen before he sends them. This is the law of divine separation. You see, God never builds on clutter. He never pours new wine into old containers, and he never sends a chosen one into purpose while they are still weighed down by attachments that belong to an old version of themselves. So when God prepares you, he simplifies you. And simplification often feels like loss. Most people think being chosen means being protected from pain. That is not true. Being chosen means being trusted with pain. It means God believes you can survive what would break others. And because of that trust, he allows seasons that feel unfair, lonely, and confusing, not to destroy you, but to detach you. God strips the chosen because the chosen are called to walk lightly. Heavy souls cannot move quickly when God gives instructions. Heavy hearts cannot hear clearly. Heavy attachments create hesitation. So God, like a careful surgeon, removes what no longer serves your assignment. This is where many misunderstand God. They say, why would God take things away from someone who loves him? The answer is simple. Because you love him. Because you listen. Because you will grow instead of turning bitter. God does not discipline strangers. He trains sons and daughters. When God begins the stripping process, it often starts quietly. Small disappointments, subtle discomfort, a feeling that something is off. Then it grows louder. Relationships no longer fit. Places feel draining. Conversations feel shallow. What once excited you now exhausts you. This is not depression. This is discernment awakening. Chosen one, separation always comes before elevation. Every single time. Before David wore a crown, he lived in caves. Before Moses led a nation, he was isolated in the wilderness. Before Jesus began his ministry, he was led into solitude. This pattern is not punishment, it is preparation. God strips you because he is about to trust you with more authority, more influence, and deeper spiritual responsibility. And power without purity destroys people. Influence without discipline corrupts. So God cleans you first, he empties you first, he humbles you first. Many of you are confused because you did everything right. You prayed, you stayed loyal, you endured, and yet things still fell apart. Hear me clearly. Obedience does not exempt the chosen from loss. Obedience accelerates transformation. The law of divine separation works like this. God removes external support so that internal strength can develop. When people leave, you learn to stand alone with God. When resources dry up, you learn to trust provision instead of systems. When validation disappears, you learn your worth comes from heaven, not applause. God is teaching you spiritual independence, not independence from Him, but independence from dependency on people, comfort, and approval. Chosen ones cannot be controlled by emotional attachments. Your assignment requires clarity, and clarity requires separation. This is why the stripping feels personal, because it is. God is dealing directly with your heart. He is asking, can I be enough for you when everything else is gone? Can you still trust me when your life no longer looks impressive? Can you still obey me when no one is watching? And here is the truth. Many are afraid to say. Some things you lost were never meant to stay. They were temporary tools, not permanent blessings. God allowed them for a season, but their expiration date arrived. And because you would not let go willingly, God stepped in. That does not make you weak. It makes you human. We all hold on to what feels familiar. But God is not attached to your comfort. He is committed to your calling. The chosen are often stripped early in life because delay would create deeper attachment. God separates you before you become too rooted in places that cannot sustain your future self. This is mercy, even if it feels harsh. Another reason God strips the chosen is visibility. When God elevates you, people will watch your life closely. Your words will carry weight. Your actions will influence others. God cannot unallow unresolved wounds, hidden pride, or emotional dependency to follow you into that season. So He deals with it now, in private. Think about this carefully. God does His deepest work when no one is clapping, when no one is checking on you, when you feel unseen. That is where real transformation happens. Chosen one, the stripping also reveals truth. When things fall away, you see clearly who and what was genuine. You discover who loved you for you and who loved you for access, convenience, or benefit. This knowledge hurts, but it protects you later. God is also teaching you discernment through loss. You are learning what drains you, what distracts you, and what aligns with your spirit. This wisdom cannot be taught through comfort. It is learned through contrast. Now listen to me closely. Stripping does not mean God will leave you empty. It means He will refill you differently, with peace instead of pressure, with purpose instead of performance, with conviction instead of confusion. But you must understand this law clearly. Resistance prolongs the pain. Fighting the process creates unnecessary suffering. The moment you stop asking why me and start asking what are you teaching me, the weight begins to lift. God is not trying to break you. He is trying to free you. Free you from people who cannot go where you are going. Free you from identities that no longer fit. Free you from fears that limit your obedience. And yes, this process is lonely. Separation always is. But loneliness does not mean abandonment. Sometimes it means God has removed distractions so you can finally hear Him clearly. Chosen one, if your life feels smaller right now, it is because God is narrowing your focus. He is reducing noise. He is cutting away excess, not to diminish you, but to refine you. Gold is not refined in comfort. It is refined in fire. And the chosen are always refined before they are revealed. So if you feel stripped, emptied, or exposed, take heart. Heaven is not finished with you. God is simply preparing a vessel strong enough to carry what is coming next. Accept the separation. Trust the process. This is not loss. This is alignment. You will lose people first. And that is not an accident. Chosen one, this is the part that hurts the most. So I want you to listen slowly and breathe while you listen. When God begins to shift your life, He almost always starts with people. Not jobs, not money, not places, people. And that is not an accident. That is strategy. Many of you noticed it already. The calls stopped. The messages slowed down. The warmth faded. People who once felt close now feel distant, cold, or irritated by your presence. Some left without explanation, some turned against you, some stayed physically but disconnected emotionally. and you asked yourself in quiet moments, "What did I do wrong?" Let me answer you with authority. You did not do anything wrong. You outgrew the version of yourself they were comfortable with. Chosen ones carry a frequency that changes over time. As God works on you, your spirit matures, your awareness sharpens, and your tolerance for shallow connection fades. This shift makes people uncomfortable, especially those who benefited from the old you. When you no longer overgive, over-explain, or overextend, access feels like loss to them. God removes people first, because people shape identity. If the wrong voices stay around you, they will influence your decisions, dilute your obedience, and distract you from your assignment. God is not cruel, He is protective. Some people were in your life to teach you, not to stay with you. Some were sent to awaken something in you, not to walk the full journey. And some were only allowed access to reveal what still needed healing inside you. Chosen one, betrayal is one of God's sharpest tools. Not because He enjoys your pain, but because betrayal exposes truth faster than comfort ever could. When someone turns against you, you see their heart clearly. You also see where you placed trust that belonged to God. I know it hurts when people misunderstand you, when they label you wrong, when they talk about you instead of talking to you. But hear this clearly. God sometimes allows false narratives to surround the chosen so that pride dies completely. When you no longer need to defend yourself, you are becoming free. People leaving creates space. Space for clarity, space for God, space for the right connections later. If everyone stayed, you would never learn discernment, you would never learn emotional boundaries, and you would never learn to stand firm in who God says you are. Many chosen ones struggle here because they have deep hearts. You love fully. You give sincerely. You stay loyal longer than you should. That is beautiful, but without wisdom, it becomes self-sacrifice in the wrong places. God steps in when your kindness becomes a doorway for depletion. Let me say something that may be difficult to hear, but necessary. Some people could not go with you because they were never meant to see the next version of you. They were attached to who you were, not who you are becoming. God removes people who rely on your old wounds to feel superior. He removes people who feed off your guilt. He removes people who resist your growth because it threatens their comfort. This is not judgment. This is separation. And yes, sometimes the people who leave are family. Sometimes they are friends you prayed with. Sometimes they are people you thought would be there forever. That pain cuts deep. But God never removes without reason. If He allowed distance, it is because closeness would have cost you your calling. Chosen one, loneliness does not mean you are unloved. It often means you are being realigned. God will isolate you when your spirit needs recalibration. Noise drowns instruction. Crowds confuse direction. Solitude sharpens hearing. When people leave, you learn to hear God's voice more clearly. When validation disappears, you learn to validate yourself through God. When support systems collapse, your faith strengthens or it breaks. And God already knows which one you will choose. Let me reassure you, God sees every tear you cried over people who walked away. He sees the nights you questioned your worth. He sees the moments you replayed conversations, wondering if you should have stayed quiet or tried harder. But hear me, you cannot keep shrinking yourself to keep people comfortable. Chosen ones are not called to fit in, they are called to stand out. And standing out always costs relationships that depend on sameness. There is also another truth you must accept. Some people left because God removed their access. They would have delayed you. They would have distracted you. Or they would have hurt you later at a deeper level. What feels like loss now is protection in disguise. God does not expose everything at once. He removes gradually. First distance, then silence, then separation. This allows your heart to adjust slowly. If God removed everyone at once, the shock would overwhelm you, so He does it in layers. Chosen one, stop blaming yourself for endings God initiated. Stop reopening doors He closed. Stop begging for clarity from people God already removed from your path. Their silence is your answer. What you are feeling right now is grief, not failure. You are grieving versions of people that no longer exist. You are grieving expectations that God never promised. And you are grieving an old version of yourself that tried to hold everyone together. Let that version rest. The people meant to walk with you in your next season will meet you there. They will not need convincing. They will recognize your spirit. They will respect your boundaries, and they will not compete with your calling. Until then, God will be enough. Not because you have no choice, but because He wants to be your foundation before He adds anyone else. Trust this, chosen one. People leaving first is not punishment. It is preparation. You are not being abandoned. You are being repositioned. Chosen one, let me add this final layer because your heart needs to hear it. When people leave, the silence they leave behind can feel louder than their presence ever was. Empty spaces echo, and in those echoes, old fears try to speak. They say you are too much, too intense, too different, too serious about God. Do not believe those lies. You are not too much. You are simply no longer small. There are seasons when God intentionally allows you to walk alone so that you stop confusing companionship with confirmation. Just because someone walks with you does not mean they are meant to lead you, advise you, or stay with you. Some people were companions, not covenant, and God knows the difference, even when you don't. This isolation is also teaching you emotional mastery. You are learning how to feel deeply without falling apart. You are learning how to miss people without chasing them. You are learning how to love without attachment. These are not losses. These are upgrades of the soul. And let me speak boldly here. If certain people left your life when you chose obedience, integrity, growth, or truth, then their departure is proof you chose correctly. Darkness always leaves when light becomes too strong. Comfort leaves when conviction enters the room. Chosen one, one day you will look back at this season with clarity instead of pain. You will see how God was rearranging your life quietly, intentionally, mercifully. You will thank Him for unanswered calls, for broken connections, for doors that closed without explanation. Because those endings saved you. Do not rush to replace what God removed. Sit with Him. Let Him stabilize you. Let Him remind you who you are when no one is clapping. That version of you is the one He will use powerfully. You are not alone. You are becoming. Material loss and career delays. When security is taken away. Chosen one, this is where fear tries to speak the loudest. When money becomes unstable. When work slows down or disappears. When plans you built carefully begin to collapse without warning. This is the moment many begin to question God, not because they stopped believing, but because survival feels threatened. I want you to listen to me calmly and clearly now. God is not confused about your provision. He is intentional about your dependence. Material loss is one of the most misunderstood parts of the chosen path. People assume that if God is pleased with you, everything should increase smoothly. But Scripture and spiritual law show us the opposite pattern. Before God releases true provision, He removes false security. Before He establishes you, He destabilizes what you leaned on too heavily. You see, money and career have a quiet way of becoming identity. Titles start defining worth. Income starts defining peace. Plans start replacing prayer. And because God loves you too much to let your identity be built on something that can collapse, He intervenes. Not to punish you, but to recalibrate you. Many chosen ones experience career delays, not because they lack talent, but because their assignment is not yet aligned. God will stall progress if success would pull you away from purpose. He will block opportunities if they would trap you in environments that drain your spirit. What feels like rejection is often redirection. I know the anxiety that creeps in during these seasons, the late nights thinking about bills, the comparison with others who seem to move ahead effortlessly, the quiet shame of not being where you thought you would be by now. Hear me clearly. Your value has not decreased. Your timeline has simply changed. God allows material instability to teach you something priceless. Trust that is not tied to outcome. Faith that exists even when numbers do not make sense. Peace that remains even when the future looks unclear. These are spiritual muscles that only develop under pressure. Chosen one, there is a reason God often reduces resources before he releases vision. Abundance without discipline destroys the chosen. Comfort dulls discernment. Ease weakens urgency. God is training you to steward more by first learning how to survive with less. Some of you lost jobs because the environment was slowly killing your spirit. Some of you experienced financial loss because pride was forming quietly. Some of you faced delays because you were about to settle for something smaller than what God promised. God will never let you succeed in something that would sabotage your soul. Let me speak honestly. Depending on money more than God creates fear. Depending on God more than money creates peace. This season is teaching you where your trust truly sits. You may notice during this time that your prayers change. You stop asking for luxury and start asking for stability. You stop asking for recognition and start asking for direction. This is growth. This is maturity. Career delays also protect you from premature exposure. God hides the chosen when their character needs strengthening. Visibility without wisdom creates downfall. Influence without humility creates destruction. So God keeps you in the background until your foundation is strong enough to hold what is coming. Chosen one, stop measuring your life by speed. God is not in a rush. He is precise. What he is building in you now will support you for decades, not moments. I know you have moments where you feel embarrassed, moments where you feel behind, moments where you wonder if you missed something or failed God somehow. Let me relieve you of that burden. Delay is not denial, and struggle is not disfavor. This season is also teaching you creativity. When resources are limited, solutions become sharper. When options shrink, discernment increases. God is sharpening your mind, your instincts, and your resilience. And listen to me carefully here. God sometimes takes away what you can control so that you learn to surrender control completely. That is where peace lives. Not in certainty, but in trust. There is also something deeply spiritual happening in your finances right now. God is breaking cycles, cycles of lack, cycles of fear, cycles of overworking and underresting, cycles inherited from family lines. But breaking cycles requires disruption, and disruption feels uncomfortable. Chosen one, do not panic in this season. Panic blocks wisdom. Fear clouds discernment. Instead, slow down. Pray more than you plan. Listen more than you worry. God speaks most clearly when you are still. Material loss humbles the ego but strengthens the spirit. It strips away entitlement and replaces it with gratitude. It reminds you that everything you have ever had came from God anyway. And let me say this gently but firmly. God will never let you starve. He will never abandon you. Provision may look different, but it will come. Sometimes through unexpected people. Sometimes through opportunities that appear last minute. Sometimes through lessons that stretch you. Your job right now is not to figure everything out. Your job is to stay faithful, stay obedient, and stay teachable. One day when this season passes, you will look back and realize how much stronger you became here, how much wiser, how much more grounded, and you will handle success differently because you once walked through scarcity with grace. Chosen one, security that comes from God cannot be shaken. Security that comes from systems always can. God is removing the shaky foundation so he can build something eternal. Trust him. This delay is not wasting you. It is shaping you. The dark night of the soul, when you feel alone with God. Chosen one, This is the season few talk about honestly, yet almost every chosen soul must walk through it. The dark night of the soul is not about darkness outside of you. It is about silence inside of you. It is the season where noise fades, distractions fall away, and you are left alone with God and your own thoughts. And for many, this is the most uncomfortable place to be. This is when prayers feel unanswered, worship feels dry, scripture feels quiet. You still believe, but you do not feel God the way you used to. And that confusion makes you wonder if you did something wrong. Let me say this with certainty. You did not lose God. God is closer than ever. He is simply teaching you how to walk by faith and not by emotional reassurance. The dark night of the soul happens when God is transitioning you from spiritual dependence to spiritual maturity. In earlier seasons, God often comforts you quickly. He reassures you through signs, people, emotions, and confirmations. But as you grow, He begins to remove those supports so your faith can deepen, not weaken, deepen. This is the season where God stops entertaining your emotions and starts refining your character. It feels like distance, but it is actually intimacy at a deeper level. God is no longer shouting because He wants you to listen more carefully. Chosen one, this season often feels lonely because it exposes what you relied on besides God. When those supports disappear, you feel naked, exposed, unsure. But this exposure is necessary. God cannot heal what you keep hidden, and solitude brings everything to the surface. Many of you experience emotional numbness here. You are not sad, but you are not joyful either. You are functioning, but not fulfilled. This numbness is not depression, it is transition. Your old emotional patterns no longer serve you, but the new ones have not fully formed yet. This is also when old wounds resurface. Memories you thought you healed, fears you thought you conquered, doubts you thought you resolved. God allows these things to come up not to torment you, but to finally remove them at the root. The dark night of the soul strips illusions. Illusions about people. Illusions about yourself. Illusions about God. You stop seeing God as a rescuer on demand and begin to know Him as a steady presence. You stop seeing yourself as fragile and begin to realize how resilient you truly are. This season also teaches you how to sit with discomfort without running. You stop numbing pain with distractions. You stop escaping into busyness. You stop filling silence just to avoid feeling. This is emotional discipline. This is spiritual strength being built quietly. Chosen one, God often feels silent here because He wants you to internalize His voice. Instead of seeking constant direction, you begin to walk in wisdom. Instead of asking for permission at every step, you begin to trust what He already taught you. This is where your faith becomes rooted instead of reactive. You stop chasing feelings and start choosing obedience. You stop measuring God's presence by sensation and start recognizing Him in stillness. And yes, this season can feel heavy. Nights feel longer, thoughts feel deeper, questions feel sharper. But do not confuse heaviness with abandonment. God is not absent, He is working beneath the surface. The dark night of the soul is also where ego dissolves. You no longer feel special. You no longer feel elevated. You simply feel human. And that humility prepares you to serve without needing recognition. Chosen one, some of the strongest believers you admire walked through this same silence. They questioned, they waited, they endured, and they came out grounded, not shaken. This season teaches you how to be alone without being lonely, how to be still without feeling empty, how to trust without needing proof. And let me tell you something important. The dark night does not last forever. It lasts until the lesson is complete, until dependence turns into trust, until fear turns into peace, until identity becomes unshakable. One day, you will wake up and realize the silence no longer scares you. You will feel steady, calm, rooted, Not because life became easy, but because you became strong. Chosen one, do not rush this season. Do not fight it. Do not label it as failure. This is where depth is formed. This is where faith matures. This is where God becomes enough. You are not lost. You are being grounded. Stay, trust, breathe. God is with you, even here. Acceptance is the turning point. When resistance ends. Chosen one, this is the moment where everything begins to shift. Not because your circumstances suddenly change, but because you do. Acceptance is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the quiet strength that rises when you stop fighting what God is doing and start flowing with it. For a long time you resisted, you questioned, you tried to hold on to people, plans, and versions of life that God was gently asking you to release. And resistance created exhaustion, not because you were wrong for feeling pain, but because fighting God's process always drains the soul. Acceptance begins the moment you stop asking God to explain himself and start trusting his character. It is when you say, "I do not understand this season, but I trust you in it." That statement alone releases a weight many chosen ones have been carrying for years. Let me be clear here. Acceptance does not mean you stop feeling. It means you stop arguing with reality. You allow grief to exist without letting it control you. You allow uncertainty without letting fear dominate you. This is emotional maturity. Chosen one, resistance keeps you tied to the past. Acceptance opens the door to peace. When you accept what God has allowed, your spirit relaxes, your mind quiets, your heart softens. And in that softened state, God can finally heal what resistance kept guarded. Many people think surrender looks like giving up. But surrender is not quitting. It is cooperating. It is aligning your will with God's wisdom. It is trusting that God sees what you cannot and knows what you do not. Acceptance also restores your power. When you stop trying to control outcomes, you regain control over your inner world. You realize you cannot force people to stay, situations to work, or timelines to speed up. But you can choose peace. You can choose obedience. You can choose faith. This is where chosen ones grow emotionally strong. They stop reacting and start responding. They stop chasing and start waiting. They stop explaining and start resting in truth. Acceptance changes how you pray. Your prayers become less frantic and more grounded, less demanding and more trusting. You stop asking God to fix everything and start asking him to shape you through it. Chosen one, the moment you accept the season you are in, clarity begins to return. Confusion fades, not because answers suddenly appear, but because your heart is no longer fighting reality. This is also when healing accelerates. Emotional wounds close faster when they are no longer reopened by resistance. Peace flows when you stop replaying what could have been and start living in what is. Acceptance does not erase hope. It refines it. You stop hoping in specific outcomes and start hoping in God's faithfulness. And that hope never disappoints. Let me say this gently, but firmly. Some of your suffering came from trying to force doors God already closed. Acceptance frees you from that struggle. Closed doors no longer feel like rejection. They feel like guidance. Chosen one, acceptance also invites patience. You learn how to wait without anxiety, to trust without urgency, to move without panic. This patience protects your spirit from burnout. And here is the truth. The moment you truly accept God's process, resistance ends and peace enters. Not temporary relief, deep peace. The kind that steadies you even when life remains uncertain. You begin to sleep better. Think clearer, react less, pray deeper. This is not coincidence. This is alignment. Acceptance is also where gratitude grows. You start noticing small blessings again. Quiet moments, simple provisions, unexpected peace. Gratitude anchors you in the present instead of pulling you back into regret. Chosen one, God does not need you to understand everything. He needs you to trust him completely. Acceptance is the language of trust. This is the turning point. This is where the weight lifts. This is where clarity returns. This is where your spirit stabilizes. You are not giving up. You are growing up, spiritually, emotionally, faithfully. Accept the season, accept the process. Peace is waiting on the other side. Chosen one, let me take you a little deeper here, because acceptance is not a one-time decision. It is a daily posture of the heart. Some days you will accept with peace. Other days you will accept with tears. Both are valid. Both are growth. Acceptance teaches you how to stop measuring your life against timelines that were never yours. You begin to release comparison. You stop watching others and wondering why their journey looks easier. You realize God does not duplicate paths. He custom builds them. And yours requires strength, depth, and endurance because of what you are called to carry. When acceptance settles in, your inner dialogue changes. You stop speaking harshly to yourself. You stop blaming yourself for things that were never under your control. You replace self-criticism with compassion. That alone heals more than you realize. Acceptance also sharpens discernment. You begin to sense when to move and when to wait, when to speak and when to stay silent, when to let go and when to hold steady. This wisdom only comes when resistance no longer clouds your judgment. Chosen one, acceptance does not mean you lower your standards. It means you raise your trust. You stop demanding certainty and start walking by faith. And faith, real faith, feels calm. It does not rush. It does not panic. It rests. And here is something important. Acceptance prepares you to receive what God has next. An anxious heart cannot steward new blessings well. A resistant spirit cannot carry peace. God waits until you are internally aligned before He shifts things externally. So if you feel a quiet calm beginning to replace chaos, that is not weakness. That is strength settling in. That is your spirit coming into agreement with God. This is growth you cannot fake. This is peace you cannot manufacture. This is surrender that transforms you from the inside out. You are exactly where you need to be. Trust that. Rest in that. Walk forward without fear. What remains when everything falls? God and your true self. Chosen one, when everything falls away, when the noise quiets, when the crowd disappears, when the plans collapse, there is a sacred moment that follows, a moment of stillness. And in that stillness, you discover something powerful. God remains, and so do you. Not the version shaped by expectations, pressure, or survival, but your true self. This is the part of the journey few understand until they live it. Loss strips illusion. It removes titles, roles, labels, and identities you borrowed just to belong. And when those layers fall, what remains is raw, honest, and real. That is where God meets you most clearly. Chosen one. When you no longer have people to impress or outcomes to control, you finally get to meet yourself without masks. You see your strength. You see your flaws. You see your resilience. And instead of judging you, God stays with you in it. This season reveals that God was never just a part of your life. He was the foundation holding everything together. When structures fall, foundations remain. And you realize something comforting. You were never held up by circumstances. You were held by God. Your true self begins to emerge here, the one not driven by fear, the one not desperate for approval, the one not performing for love. You become quieter but stronger, softer but more discerning, less reactive, more grounded. Chosen one, this is where identity stabilizes. You stop asking, "Who am I supposed to be?" and start knowing, "Who I am becoming." You no longer define yourself by success or failure. You define yourself by faithfulness. God uses this season to reintroduce you to yourself, to show you who you are when nothing is propping you up. And what you find may surprise you. You are wiser than you thought, stronger than you believed, more faithful than you realized. When everything falls, your relationship with God becomes simpler and deeper. No performance, no bargaining, just presence. You stop chasing signs and start trusting his nearness. Prayer becomes conversation instead of negotiation. This is where peace settles in. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that stays even when life is uncertain. That peace comes from knowing that as long as God is with you, you are not lost. Chosen one, your true self is not rushed. It is patient. It is observant. It listens more than it speaks. It moves with intention. This self was always there, buried under pressure and expectation. Loss simply uncovered it. You also discover boundaries here. You learn what you will no longer tolerate, what drains you, what aligns with your spirit. This clarity protects you going forward. You will not give access easily again. God rebuilds confidence here, but not the loud kind, the steady kind. Confidence rooted in knowing who you are in Him. Confidence that does not need applause. You begin to trust your instincts again, to honor your discernment, to move without over-explaining. This is spiritual authority forming quietly. Chosen one, this season also teaches you that you do not need much to be okay. Simplicity becomes peaceful. Stillness becomes comforting. You realize how little you truly need to feel whole. God uses this simplicity to prepare you for what is next. When He adds again, you will not idolize what He gives. You will steward it wisely. Your true self is resilient. It has survived heartbreak, silence, loss, and confusion. And it is still standing, not bitter, not hardened, still faithful. That is evidence of God's work in you. When everything falls, fear loses its grip. You realize you already lived through what you were afraid of, and you are still here. Chosen one, this is rebirth. Quiet, grounded, real. God remains, and so do you, and that is enough. Chosen one, let me stay here with you a little longer, because this truth needs to settle deeply into your spirit. When everything falls, God does not rush to rebuild immediately. He allows you to sit in what remains so you can recognize its value. He wants you to know that even stripped of everything, you are still whole. In this quiet space, you begin to hear your own thoughts more clearly. Not the anxious ones driven by fear, but the grounded ones shaped by wisdom. You start to recognize which desires are truly yours and which were inherited from pressure, expectation, or comparison. This awareness is freedom, your true self is not desperate, it is discerning. It does not chase attention, it attracts alignment. You stop forcing connections and start trusting timing. You understand now that what is meant for you will not require you to abandon yourself. God also teaches you how to carry yourself differently here. You walk slower, you speak with intention, you react less. There is a calm authority in you now, not arrogance, presence. People can feel it even if they do not understand it. Chosen one, this is where self-respect is restored. You no longer abandon your peace just to keep someone close. You no longer overextend yourself to feel needed. You choose alignment over attachment. And that choice changes everything. This season also strengthens your inner voice. You trust your discernment because you have seen what happens when you ignore it. You no longer question every decision. You pray, listen, and move. God uses this time to heal your self-image. You stop seeing yourself through the lens of rejection and start seeing yourself through the lens of survival and growth. You made it through what tried to break you. That matters. You also learn how to sit with God without agenda, not asking for answers, not asking for outcomes, just being present. And in that presence, your spirit rests. This rest is sacred. It prepares you to carry more without losing yourself again. Chosen one, when God begins to rebuild, He will do it on this new foundation, a foundation of self-awareness, peace, and trust. The life that comes next will not shake you the way the old one did. You will still face challenges, but you will face them differently. Calmer, wiser, less reactive, more anchored. So do not rush past this stage. Do not minimize it. This is where your true self solidifies. This is where faith becomes part of your identity, not just your belief system. Everything falling was not the end. It was the reveal. You are not empty. You are established. Conclusion. You were never losing. You were being led. Chosen one, let me leave you with this truth resting gently on your spirit. You were never losing. Not people, not time, not opportunities. You were being led. Led away from what could not sustain you. Led toward who you were always meant to become. Every door that closed did not reject you. It redirected you. Every season of silence was not abandonment, it was instruction. Every moment you felt alone was not punishment, it was alignment. God was guiding you even when it felt like everything was falling apart. You did not imagine the weight lifting. You did not imagine the clarity returning. That is what happens when resistance ends and trust takes its place. God does not waste pain. He transforms it. And He has been transforming you. Now, chosen one, walk forward without fear. Do not carry shame from seasons that shaped you. Do not apologize for growth that cost you comfort. You survived what was meant to refine you, and you did not lose your faith in the process. That matters. Before we close, chosen ones, give a like to this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, tap the bell icon, and share this message with other chosen ones who need this confirmation today. And comment 777 to declare that you trust God's leading even when the path is unclear. Remember this: God led you here because you are strong enough to hear it and humble enough to receive it. You are not behind. You are right on time. Rest in that. Walk in peace. God is with you.